We cannot not communicate. Communication plays into nearly every asset of our lives. It affects our relationships and health, it impacts who we are and how we perceive ourselves, and let's be honest, most tasks, whether it be related to home, school, or work, could not be accomplished without communication. In this video, we will briefly discuss why we communicate. First, we will discuss the physical needs. Second, identity needs. Third, social needs. Fourth, practical needs. And finally, we will break down Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, when we refer to physical needs, we mean that communication affects our health. Not every person, however, needs the same amount of communication. Some individuals may prefer alone time rather than spending large quantities of time in groups. Having strong relationships has, however, been shown to positively impact us physically. For instance, research shows that people who process a negative experience by talking about it report improved life satisfaction as well as enhanced mental and physical health. Additionally, research also shows that 10 minutes of talking a day, face-to-face or by phone, improves memory and boosts intellectual function. Lastly, those with stronger networks of family and friends have been shown to live an average of 3.7 years longer than those who are socially isolated. Think about relationships that make you feel good, relationships that provide you with support and care you need. More than likely, they are subtly impacting your health and your overall well-being. Not only does communication affect our health, but it also impacts who we are. According to communication scholars, our identity is formed throughout our interactions with other people. Think about the relationships you had growing up. What rules did you learn? How did you learn what was or was not acceptable in certain contexts? Were there any special skills or aspects about yourself that your family praised you for? Or perhaps there were characteristics that were frequently questioned or ridiculed. Think about how these interactions contributed to who you are as well as how you perceived yourself. Additional examples of this include feral children who grew up isolated from human contact. Having no experience with human behavior severely impacted these children's sense of self. We all enter the world with little to no sense of identity. Ultimately, we are very complex beings molded and shaped by the interactions we have. Now that we have discussed how communication impacts our health and identity, let's discuss how communication is the principal way relationships are created. We are social creatures, some desiring more communication and relationships than others. Relationships in themselves would not be built without communication. Affection, having fun with family or friends, helping others, and being helped by others are just a few examples of interactions that build our social skills and play a role in building meaningful relationships. Research shows that children who grew up in conversation-oriented families reported having more satisfying same-sex friendships and romantic relationships when they became adults. With this, we can see how developing these social skills as children trickles into our social skills and relationships as adults. Additionally, women reported that socializing contributed more to a satisfying life than virtually any other activity. This also trickles back into our physical needs and how communication and having others around you makes you feel good inside. Think about it like this. Without communication, you would not have friends, family, or really any relationships whatsoever. Finally, as individuals, we have practical needs that are fulfilled by communication. Communication is essentially a tool that enables us to function and complete everyday tasks. Telling the gas station attendant that you need $20 on number 10 or telling your boss you need an extra day to finish your project demonstrates the practical everyday use of communication. Communication essentially helps us function. Effective communication can help people reach agreements, goals, or understandings. Think about how miscommunication can cause additional problems or impact others. On an extreme scale, think about how communication could or could not help during an emergency or health-related issue. An extreme example of this comes from Bailey in 2016. It was found that communication failures in hospitals and doctors' offices were linked to more than 1,700 U.S. deaths in a recent 5-year period. Having effective communication skills impacts your relationships, job performance, and as we see with Bailey's study, could literally mean the difference between life and death. Our ability to communicate in general helps us every single day. Following these 4 needs, we will conclude with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This theory follows the assumption that people's behaviors are based on their needs. Maslow proposed 5 categories. Each category must be satisfied before we reach the next one, from the bottom of the pyramid to the top of the pyramid. As we go through each of these, think about how communication is often necessary to satisfy each need. First, we have physiological needs. This includes air, water, food, rest, sex. We would not be able to function as a society or people without having these necessary components. We need these to survive. Second, we have safety needs. This includes protection from threats. This would include shelter or somewhere to sleep at night. Third, we have social needs. This includes forming meaningful relationships, as we previously discussed. Fourth, we have a need for self-esteem. This means that we have the desire to believe that we are worthwhile, valuable people. Lastly, we have self-actualization. This is the desire to develop our potential to the maximum, to become the best versions of ourselves. Communication is essential in our everyday lives. Communication directly affects our health, who we are, our relationships, and everyday tasks. Without communication, we could not function. We as human beings cannot not communicate.